Hello and welcome. This is a continuation of our group study of practical occultism by Blavatsky. And we'll begin with 2 minutes of silence. Okay, and here we have a quick overview of what Blavatsky believes occultism is about. It's not magic. It's not about getting powers, nor is it about the pursuit of happiness. She says here in 4 that it's about the science of life, the art of living. So kind of about finding the purpose of life and what we're doing here. And we come here to our first rules for this meeting. So I apologize. It may be me speaking a lot this time. We don't have anyone else who's joined this particular group study. But here at the Theosophical Society, typically we believe that work on the inner planes is more important than the outer. So even though no one else is here except for me, I'd like to keep doing this because I believe that on the inner planes, this is sending and propagating energy, if you want to call it. I don't know. On the inner planes, that'll help just as much as if there was a group of people here. So I'll read these and then sit in silence for a while. If anyone watches this later, they can reflect too. So 22. These co-students too are not of his own election, or chosen by himself from personal sympathy and appreciation. They are chosen by his teacher on far other grounds, and he who would be a student must first be strong enough to kill out in his heart all feelings of dislike and antipathy to others. 23. How many Westerns are ready even to attempt this in earnest? So pause, reflect. That, even though this was written 100 years ago or so, I believe that Blavatsky's right. That still today, most Westerners aren't ready to try this, to put aside our personal feelings of dislike to work together with people if we don't have to. And yeah, we do that at work, but on our off time, do we ever hang out with people we don't like on the grounds of, for some occult reason, we've been put with this person to learn with them? I don't think it's very often done. It sounds extremely hard to kill out in our hearts, even the feeling of dislike and antipathy to others. It's fine.
Well said. Oh,
It's just us. I didn't know if anyone was gonna join, so I started, and I don't know. I was gonna keep going even if no one did.
great, great. Let's go together then.
Okay. So
You
I
know,
already read 22 and 23 here out loud. I didn't know if you had any thoughts.
mhm. Yeah, I think the gurus are completely impersonal, right? They don't. If for us it's recommended not to have like personal predispositions like this, then for them it's far beyond them to show any prejudice or personal like preferences. Mm,
Maybe maybe something that this would want us to do is look at the reasons why we feel dislike or antipathy to these people. It's, I don't know, when I do that with people that rub me the wrong way at work, it's normally some egoistic reason that I'm not conscious of at the time, and that's it.
mm.
I don't know. You being a teacher, you deal with a lot more people than I do, so I feel like this would be harder for you, but maybe not.
Yeah. Well, we have kind of a greenhouse pleasant circumstances that way because you know students have to come. So and of course there is also the other side of the medal is that you have to work with those who come. Hello
Hello.
again.
Deja vu.
hmm Are we meeting in another dimension?
Mm.
Alternate dimension where we look the same, but we're doing something else.
We have a beautiful picture to look at, that's for sure.
I haven't read this book before.
This is the same quote we shared for the poster the other day. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on this, Clover. If not, we can go to the next one.
on this quote, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
read it. So I have some questions. So this is about studying this is about spiritual study groups, right?
Mm.
Yeah, the context of this was this idea that there's an odd number of students thrown together who are studying occult things by the guru. But this could apply to any spiritual group, I think. But that's what this is specifically for.
I see. Mm.
I don't know, Clover, you said earlier that you meet every day with the Lotus Circle. I don't know if this applies to any of those meetings or not. Hopefully not, but if it does.
Fill out in his heart thing. Yeah, what I get from this is that it seems like we have to rise beyond our perception of like our own likes and dislikes, right? When we're studying together, and there should be a lot of, and this particularly pertains to spiritual study groups, right? Because I guess there can be a lot of, in a spiritual study group, there's like more potential for clashes and conflict. In our Lotus Circle discussions, so the thing is, like, most of the time there's probably only one or two people who speak up. Especially during Zoom discussions, sometimes people are a bit shy. Yeah, but there's a lot of mutual respect, and and I realize the kind of etiquette that we are following is that we don't want to claim that we know anything for sure, or whatever we're saying is, the truth, like definitely true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen that too. It helps a lot when we don't have an air of authority about us. That's something that triggers me personally. But whenever in a spiritual situation, someone tries to speak as if they're an authority on the subject, and that's something I need to work on probably, to not have in my heart that feeling
Are
of
you
dislike
sure?
and intensity.
But you're the last person who would have this, who would do that. So, but yeah, there is that tendency, because I feel like when it comes to spiritual subjects, a lot of people have a lot of strong feelings.
True.
Yeah. Hi, Justin.
Interesting.
Long time no see.
Yeah, hello. I got Seth's notification a few days ago, and I'm awake. So
Very nice.
Yay.
good to
Yeah, I
see
think
you
for a
all.
while you've been working on the weekends, right?
Yeah, I still do, and then I'm moving to webinars in the Saturday morning. So,
Nice.
but I'm here.
Uh, Justin, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on these two quotes here. If not, that's fine, but give me a chance before we go to the next one.
Yeah. If I come up with something, I'll let you know. I'll just need to read it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a minute then.
By the way, I don't know where it comes from, don't remember now, but there is this wonderful, like, I don't know, illustration of all this, like, how to behave with others. You imagine you enter um, subway, and there is this car that you enter, and the doors close, and you understand that you are going to spend here the rest of your life. Like that's where you're going to live out the rest of your days. And then immediately the well-being of everyone who is there becomes like your top priority, because whatever problems arises, it's your problem. And you really take sincere care about others. So maybe this helps in the circles when you understand that there is nowhere to go and there is just you as you are here. That's it.
I guess that's when you feel like even on a physical level that others are yourself, like you depend on each other.
Mm.
Oftentimes, yeah, we feel that probably it's sad that we have to feel it that way on a physical level in order to like you have to feel like, oh, it's it's a survival thing
Mm.
in order to maybe treat others like ourselves. So I think but if on much higher levels we can already perceive that we are interdependent on each other, then that's different. They are chosen by his teacher on far other grounds. What does this mean exactly? Far other grounds.
I think it has to do with that certain people balance out other people. In that in a group setting to learn occult things, which is what this was originally for, certain people brought together can become like an orchestra, and each person's a particular instrument, and they need that particular instrument to work together with the other ones. I think it's that kind of thing.
Are you saying like everyone is chosen for a reason, and then it's like different players in an orchestra? And
Yeah, yep. Like a concrete example for a group that was kind of mentioned in the book, but not really, is say you have someone who's hyper organized and very like do this, then this, then this, and then another person who's more relaxed. And these personalities naturally, they don't get along very well because of just how they are. But for the group, it's needed that both these people are there because they both contribute different things that the group needs. Like a concrete example of how that would look. Maybe.
yeah, I agree.
And I think the idea was that on the occult level, on a deeper level, this happens too, in ways that we can't understand yet.
I think I learned that even in the occult hierarchy, like in the brotherhood, the masters are very different. But they all come to a consensus. I mean, they can all come to yeah, like very different. I don't know how to I don't describe it very well, but yeah, the idea is that they're all very different, but then they I guess it's good that they are different.
I think it's also inevitable, right? People are different, that's it.
Yeah.
I wonder how connected they are to this occult hierarchy. Like I imagine if I were to see the world in exactly the same way as like Clover, Spat, or Justin, and think in the exact same way for a moment, how would I work with that person when I come back to myself? I feel like they could probably do that, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they can probably do that. Yeah, I'm trying to imagine how that would be as well. Like, I think in the spiritual study group, that would be ideal, right? Because the very nature of a spiritual study group is that we try to see each other as beyond the personality.
Mhm.
And it's also the union for many lives ahead, maybe for all lives ahead, right? So it's extremely important. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but I assume that's the connection, at least on many lives.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense that once you know someone, you probably never not know them. So you'll meet again forever, right?
Yeah. Maybe just to give an example of how one of our how one of our discussions in the Lotus Circle group is like. So sometimes like on Saturdays we meet, and then before like the main program we have like a meeting. Sometimes we do a ritual first and then we have a discussion. So so usually Brandon is the one who kind of comes up with like the topic for the discussion. Sometimes like with a quote like this, and then we all discuss. So we also kind of discussed, like we talked about how we could improve on our discussions, how we could be more respectful, and how a spiritual group discussion could be like how like an ideal kind of discussion would be like. What I realized is that it's so it happened just today that one of our friends kind of questioned the other friend who shared his experience about where we're talking about how we maintain a stability of mind and clarity of thought, and also like just remember that we are our higher selves basically in tough situations. We talked about that today at the lodge, and then one of our friends shared his opinion, and then his experience. The other friend kind of said that he doesn't think that he kind of disagreed. And then I felt like I don't know, like my immediate reaction is that yes, both opinions are valid, but then the disagreement can be a bit jarring, because especially when we're sharing our personal experiences. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I usually keep my disagreements to myself. Just, because when it's someone's personal experience, I don't think, well, one, I might be wrong on why I disagree. And so it's not my right to take that away from someone else. So if I disagree, I usually keep it inside, because one, I might be wrong, and two, even if I'm not, it doesn't really serve the other person to tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
When it comes to personal things. Now, if we're talking about something objective, I think there's ways to be helpful in guiding each other in the right direction, or what seems to be the right direction.
Yeah. And there are ways of showing our disagreement as well. That could be more.
Yeah, I know personally, I struggle with how to be tactful. Like say there is something objectively wrong. I don't even know how to say it in a kind way sometimes.
Oh.
In the lodge in Wheaton, and I think I heard Michelle Sender say this as well, but when we're in groups like that, the idea is to build off of each other. And so when someone says something, a lot of times there's no necessity to disagree with them, but just build on top of that. So it's, I hear what you're saying, this is my perspective, or you just keep building, so you don't have to tear anyone down. You just keep going with something positive on top of that, as opposed to taking it away. And I found that helpful.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally agree.
Was there anything else on these two?
I did read
Yeah.
it, and the question, how many Westerners are ready even to attempt this in earnest? Um, I don't know. I know there's a handful of Theosophists who are ready. So if that counts. But no, there's other spiritual traditions. I know there's a lot of groups who study the Bhagavad Gita, um, year round. And I think that some of them are going to make an earnest attempt. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, is this the same thing as Viragya, like cultivating the ability of like Viragya?
I would say it's probably a manifestation of this quality. But if Vairagi is a paramita, it means probably that it must be potentially perfect and always present to all factors.
Hmm.
Like it's a paramita is something we discussed it today also. It says like not being affected. It's very much when before the eyes are ready to see, they must be, what is it, invulnerable,
Capable of tears.
incapable of tears. Yeah, so
Hmm.
that's something we all dream about. I think to this or that extent, in this or that way, Vairagya would be great.
Hmm. Hmm. But yeah, to answer in short, I think most of humanity, or a lot of humanity, we still, including myself, um, I'm still attached to the positive, the negative, and desires, and so. But I will say I'm willing to make the attempt. So I don't know how many Westerners are willing to make the attempt. That's not to say I've been successful.
Yeah, no, even seeing it is way more than most. Would anyone be willing to read these two?
I can read 24. And then the details of daily life, the command not to touch even the hand of one's nearest and dearest, how contrary to Western notions of affection and good feeling, how cold and hard it seems. Egotistical too, people would say, to abstain from giving pleasure to others for the sake of one's own development. Well, let those who think so defer till another lifetime the attempts to enter the path in real earnest, but let them not glory in their own fancied unselfishness. For in reality, it is only the seeming appearances which they allow to deceive them, the conventional notions based on emotionalism and gush or so-called courtesy, things of the unreal life, not the dictates of truth. Wow. Well, I think
Go
it's
ahead, sorry.
no, I just wanted to say that is that if I understand correctly, it's not for the rest of existence that they cannot touch anyone. It's like for the period of occult training, which may last long, many years, maybe in some cases until the end of incarnation, but it's not that they will never be able to touch anyone ever, because
Mm.
I'm pretty sure we have references in the occurrences when the masters manifested themselves that or appeared in the body, like Olcott wakes up and grabs the hand of the master thinking it's maybe someone else trying to rob him. KH, there is this episode, for example, so it's necessary for occult purposes for a period, I guess.
So is this like a requirement for what? So for who? For the student of occultism or
Yeah.
someone who's on the path?
This
Not
stems from earlier in the book, HPB gave, what was it? 16 or 20 something rules from a book that was meant for students of occultism in the East. And one of the rules was that you're not allowed to touch any animal or anything. And it didn't really explain why. And then I think this 24 is saying that to the average person, that would sound pretty egotistical to not touch anybody because it affects them. And then I think what Svat was saying was that there's underlying reasons for this. And essentially, I think that we don't know what we don't know yet.
What this brings to mind is like, well, I'm just taking this from the perspective of like a student of Theosophy, who is trying to sort of maybe discover a closer connection with the ones they love. Like, I think I've heard like Brandon, for example, like I heard him. So we were in Switzerland and then he went on a walk on his own. And then he said that like he went on a trek on his own and came back, and he told us he felt closer to all of us and the people he loves, like when he's away from them, when he's in solitude. So that stayed with me for a long time. Practice, or this attempt to try to get closer to people on a higher level, by being away from them physically. This is what this quote brings to mind.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to say after a walk.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
it is.
Yeah, this quote, I'll just use, since we all know Pablo, I'll just use him as an example. But I feel like someone like Pablo kind of has he is married, but he kind of went past the idea of getting married and having a kid or multiple kids, and living the simple, typical life of a Westerner. And he's really taken a deep dive into theosophy and teaching it. And so in some ways, I believe, it's similar, that he's kind of, put that aside in order to teach theosophy. And some people might say, oh, well, you don't know what it's like to have kids. It's a really good thing. You're just being selfish because you don't want the responsibility, or whatever someone might say. And really underneath it, it's a sacrifice. It's not that he's running away from this responsibility of living the normal, quote unquote, normal life, but really he's giving his life to something deeper. And so I just see a mirror in the idea that, on the surface, people might think that it's a weird, selfish thing to not touch someone, but really it's like there's something deeper about it that's actually helping people. And it's a sacrifice to take up this aspect of the occult path. I don't know. I shouldn't have used Pablo's name because it's not a perfect. That was
It's still
stupid.
pretty good metaphor, though. No, a lot closer to home.
Yeah, it's kind of like a paradox that cannot really be understood on like from a personality level, maybe. Right? Like in order to be closer, in order to serve better, like Pablo serve the world better through theosophy, he chooses to sacrifice certain things that like maybe in the eyes of the world would seem egotistical. Yeah.
Chan chimed in from the background and said Annie Besant's life is a good example, because she had children that she didn't get to see. And it could seem like, oh, well, I'd rather do my work than be with my family. But really, it's something completely different. So,
Well, there is also Olcott, who was married, got divorced 1 year before he met HPB, or about that. But he also had 2 sons. And I don't know if they ever met, possibly because he visited US after he got involved with it, yes, but they had to move to India for how many years? How many years did he, well, almost exclusively, spend outside of US? So he had to abandon them also. And there is a powerful letter, by the way, from M. Like, well, I read it maybe a couple months ago, and I said, wow, because apparently it says some, well, I don't know, maybe you know it, and in my paraphrasing of it is that you come to conclusion that it was a mistake to come to India for you. Well, the sooner we get this sorted out, the better. First of all, it was your desire to come to India. Remember that. And then second, if you cannot make the circumstances obey, then what are you going to do? What are you thinking about getting towards adeptship? Make circumstances, and then like grow up. I paraphrased it for myself, like, if you go big or go home, and the photograph of your son in your room will always pull you back to America. Like, very strong message. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a powerful thing to have that many examples of people living like that in the TS. It's not all just words. There's people doing it.
Yeah. That's why also one of the, like, a side note completely, that why Adyar is so amazing, because it's filled with energies of people who really gave their lives to this,
Mm.
So yeah, it's very powerful, like
Mm.
accumulation of energies. I think.
26 and 27, if anyone's willing.
Okay, I'll read them. How are students in the West to attune themselves to harmony as here required of them? So strong has personality grown in Europe and America that there is no school of artists, even whose members do not hate, and are not jealous of each other. Professional hatred and envy have become proverbial. Men seek each to benefit himself at all costs, and even the so-called courtesies of life are but a hollow mask covering these demons of hatred and jealousy.
Yeah, this is something I think is pretty easy to see in the world around us. Maybe in corporate culture recently, it's been better. I think it's more about working together. But when this kind of thing happens in the TS, it really breaks my heart.
Oh,
'Cause
has it happened?
I have seen it happen before. And it may not even be a conscious thing on certain individuals' part, but you can tell that underlying is this professional hatred and envy. And I don't
Wow.
know. I mean, we're humans, so it's bound to happen. I don't think any less of TS because of it. But I do wish there was something to tactfully point that out in such a way that these people who love the TS and want to help would see that they're doing this. And I think maybe that would help. But I don't know. I don't know how.
yeah. Yeah, no names or anything, but yeah, this is a real thing that I've witnessed in TSA, for instance. But to balance that out, I would say that most of the time that I've witnessed it, it's between people who are working for TSA but are not necessarily into theosophy. They wouldn't striving to be theosophists. So
Mm.
that's, but yeah, like Seth said, when it comes to theosophists, I don't know that it's always a conscious thing that's happening. It's just part of our development.
Mm.
Yeah, and that makes me feel a lot more sympathy towards them to know it's not conscious. They don't mean to be doing this.
Yeah,
Sometimes-
even
Sorry.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Too polite. Yeah.
I don't even remember what I was going to say.
I just wanted to say, this makes me think of like the brighter the light, the darker the shadow.
Mm,
So maybe like even in places that are really spiritual, like the TS, if we think of it from this perspective, maybe it's not that shocking that it would happen. Because whenever, I mean, in places with a lot, very that's trying to do good, like there would be a lot of resistance
mhm.
from the other side, I guess. I mean, yeah, the play of opposites, I guess.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that. Yeah,
yeah,
Justin,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, Slav, you first.
Okay, well, I wanted to say that studying theosophical history helps in that regard because, for example, well, all of that has already happened a lot, and much of it is commented in Mahatma letters and letters of HPB and also in the letters of the Masters of the Wisdom by General Zadasa, right? So, for example, the story of London Lodge, London Society of those days. There were such, clashes and conflicts and problems with elections. And the precious thing is that it is commented by the masters here and there, so we can get really deep insight into what was happening and how somebody had great potential but failed, to conquer their inner demons, so to say. Somebody else was tested, let's say, by the Dukva, which is the opposite side of the light forces, working with them, especially to subvert them, and so on and so on. So it's actually a very rich kind of a battle in the battlegrounds. So and if something happens in the beginning of the process, it's somehow replicated, I think, for the future. So
Mm,
these tests and trials and things they will happen, I assume, in the TS. But there are also victories, and there are also always chance and hope. So that is great. So yes, light and darkness always. TS was not created, as somebody said, for perfect people, because for perfect people there is the hierarchy, the masters, the ashrams. It's like created by imperfect people for imperfect people.
Mm.
Let me sort of look up those quotes. Thank you. I've heard it said before too that money in and of itself brings karma with it. It's like for the instance of the TSA, there's money involved in that. These people are getting paychecks, like Justin was saying,
mm.
and that invites negative energy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, me and Chen, we went on a walk this morning, and we were talking about how WFYT seems to be doing, and this is a personal opinion, it's not the truth, but it seems like WFYT is doing better work for theosophy than TSA is doing right now. That's not necessarily true. That's a limited perspective. But that thought popped up, and I was like, well, what's the reason? And if it's, let's just go under the premise that it is true, what would be one of the reasons? And I believe it's because everyone involved is making a real attempt to understand theosophy, to share theosophy, and to live it. Whereas a lot of, like Seth is saying, people are there for a paycheck, and so their motive or intention for being there is completely different. You know, it's I'm here Monday through Friday and I'm going home. And the difference here is these are volunteers. You're not here for a paycheck. And your intention for being here is completely different. It's not a job. It's something that each person who comes wants to contribute. And it's just a totally different mentality, a totally different vibration. And that's not to talk down about TSA. There's a lot of good programs. It does serve as an entry, a potential entry into understanding theosophy, but there's a lot of other stuff going on that's just not been helpful.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it would be such a tricky thing to try and fix that. I don't know how someone could, because you can't just fire people, you know, that's their livelihood.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's a difficult thing.
And there's karma involved, you know. Certain people are there for a good reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it seems, I don't know, maybe Clover or Slav, you can talk about the TS in your home countries, but it seems like there's been these two, I don't want to say competing, but these two waves of energy that move through the TS here. And one of them is the idea that we need to open ourselves up. It's kind of like a new age vibe. It's like we need to get more people. And so then our programming becomes broader. And then the idea of theosophy, some people believe theosophy, there's truth in everything. And so we need to include everything, which I agree with to some extent. But then there's the old school theosophists who, we like to study the classic books, and we believe theosophy is a spiritual path in and of itself, and that's what we're aiming to push. And so there's this nebulous, like, no one understands what it is. It just depends on where you're kind of at in your own consciousness. How is it in your countries? Is it similar, or is it just one thing?
Like we do go back to like a lot of the basic tenets of theosophy a lot in the programs that we have. And so we actually, I do know that I think the TSA invites a lot of people from outside, right, to give presentations. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
So at the Singapore Lodge, we don't actually invite people from outside to give any. I mean, there's good and bad. I mean, there's of course two sides to everything, but yeah. So that's how the Singapore Lodge does how the Singapore Lodge works. Like we kind of just only members give talks or presentations or um facilitate activities. Yeah. But we do have like we do try to organize like stuff like a bit more maybe closer to new agey things so that we can sort of bring friends and all that but still not too new agey. So like gong bath, like one of our Kristen from our lodge, she is a sound therapy practitioner, so she gives us like gong baths, and then we have mantra chanting and singing and all that. So those are a bit less on the theory side and more like more lifestyle maybe. So yeah, we don't really have, so in that sense we don't have like such a wide range of interests that we cover at the lodge. Yeah, but also we don't go too deep into like we're not too fixated on like the fundamental stuff. So maybe a bit more flexible. Yeah, a bit more in between. I'm not sure
Mhm,
how it will be, but right now that's how it is.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
Well, we have, I think, natural somehow tendency to go deeper into study. And the thing is that we don't really organize things that are connected with practical activities. So it's very much like studying, events that are conferences and congresses and Zoom activities and so on, but we almost have nothing else.
mhm,
So yeah, and we don't have a big society. So and I think actually both things are very valid. If if like people who organize this new ageist things, they don't pull the blanket too much on themselves to say that this is the theosophy and that's it, then it's good that they are there because they can reach many people, many people.
mhm,
And if theosophy is aimed at improving people's life, which I understand it is aimed at that, then there is no reason why it cannot reach many people through this. Like some yoga for health, some vegetarian propaganda in the right and a good way, and so on
Mm.
and so on. That's very helpful. Actually, it comes to my memory that HPB in the Key to Theosophy says that even exchange of goods between the countries, even that we can and should facilitate because it brings people closer together. Where
mhm,
there is division, there are problems. So even we can bridge in any way, it's already good. So from that point of view, yes, and I would like to have more of that here in Russia, but
Mm.
there are not many young people in general, and for this to appear, there must be somebody who has this call, this impulse, and capacity to create that. It always depends in Theosophical Society if there is a person who can actually do it, because we
mhm.
have many good ideas, but who is going to do that? Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it more interesting for um
young
people who
people.
are visiting the society for the first time to have like a
Yeah.
wide variety of interest topics. Like yeah, so that is something that I find that we don't have here.
Yeah, I've noticed that I agree, it gets a lot of people to come, but then to further, I don't know, to further teach the theosophical ideas, it becomes a bit difficult because
Mm.
people's first introduction was, let's say, a sound bath or um, a drum circle, which I actually host, but it's hard to go from that to membership, and then even if they are a member, I've noticed a lot of members are there and without any kind of understanding of what theosophy is. Like they have their own idea of what it is based off of their interpretation of the three objects,
Mm.
which is fine. And I just find myself trying to understand, like, am I being too rigid? Am I like getting too boxed in with my own beliefs? Or is there a real just reason to try and get people to understand theosophy
Mm.
as it was kind of taught to me? And there's a fine line to walk, get we can become dogmatic or not, but it's like it's really hard to balance, how to get people interested in theosophy and not just interested in the programs that are on the periphery.
Mm. That is true. I guess when people come through these programs, through like the programs on the periphery, um, like yes, there can be a lot of people, but maybe ultimately there's only a few who would stay. And then those who come, maybe they get an experience. And then maybe in
Hmm.
future, I mean, there's a seed planted maybe. And then, I mean, maybe, and then maybe in future,
Hmm.
that seed would sprout and then they would come. But yeah, like definitely I feel like Theosophy is something that's not for the masses.
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe it is kind of meant to be that only a few really stay for what Theosophy really is. The service and the, you know, the character building, a lot of, you have to change your perspective. There's a lot of paradigm shifts that you have to be ready to make. But also,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely like trying to refine our outreach, like refine like or try to find a way to make Theosophy interesting
Well,
in
and
order to, I don't
one
know.
of the things that I'm running into, for instance, like there are groups who teach they'll do Kriya Yoga initiation, or there's a Rosicrucian group, or a Masonic lodge, or any other number of various ways of like awakening consciousness or helping people evolve or discovering the latent powers within humanity. And like there's Native American groups by us who do a lot of plant medicine ceremonies, and the people who go to these things, their main objective or intention seems to be that they know there's more to consciousness, there's more to life than what's at the surface, and they want to dig deeper. And so Theosophy also has a path that, not it's not limited, but there are paths that Theosophy can teach people to awaken consciousness. And the only difference is that the Theosophical Society doesn't seem to stick to that. It's like, hey, we are an organization. Here are some teachings. Here's a path. Become a member and join the lodge. But instead of doing that, we were like, oh yes, everything is included, and it is. But it's like we're giving all these other paths and different groups their spotlight. And then, like, let's say you do go to a Kriya Yoga initiation, they teach a very specific path from a very specific teaching, and there's no shame about it. But with Theosophy, we have to walk this fine line of dogma and open-mindedness, and yet still try to get people to learn Theosophy. And I just feel like it's kind of hard where I'll go out on a limb and say it's hard without having a dogma or saying this is the way. Um, and it's not to say it's the only way, but this is the way we're teaching. And instead, it's more like we're open to all of these things, and then it's confusing to teach someone or to lead someone to what I consider actual theosophy.
Yeah, I think that problem is unique to TSA. I often think of TSA in my mind as the New Age sacrifice so that the rest of the world doesn't have to have these problems that the TSA does. And I think the cause of it is money, if I had to guess. Just because there's people that live there that need income, and the best way to generate income is to attract all these people from all these different walks of life. And if you start talking about Theosophy's main tenets, by its very nature, it's going to attract a much smaller amount of people, and it's probably not enough money to sustain the grounds that they have. And that's what I would think the underlying reason is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow it's good not to lose the sight of what we are doing exactly and what we are, right? But then how to define it? That's another question. In our I think there is no place without problems in our theosophical work, but there are cycles. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's more challenging. And in our circumstance, for example, we have different currents or esoteric currents. Some people, because the Rurik's family and Rurik teaching of Agni Yoga is a very powerful tradition in Russia. And at least for some period, maybe even now, it's actually bigger and stronger than the TS. So, and many of them come to the TS. And then there is also Bailey and Alice Bailey current, which is something that if those people don't have problems with Rörich's followers necessarily, then Röhrich followers very often have a lot of problems with Bailey followers because of things that Helen Röhrich said specifically about Bailey, and so on. So that is one point of clash that we have. Then the Bailey people, they actually have their own organizations and their own membership. So they can be like 30, 40 people entering the TS over a period of time. And like turncoats, I don't know if it's the right word to use, like they look Theosophists, but inside they're also members of another organization. So there's another problem and some other things. So what we found works for us and has been working for several years wonderfully, I think, is really focusing on the fundamental, basic, so-called classical theosophy, which no one can really fully identify what it is, but certainly HPB and the masters are there. Because HPB is the figure that everyone respects, be that Röhrich followers, Alice Bailey followers, other currents followers, everyone respects that. So we found that for the sake of our cooperation, it's important that there is a core of people who understand it and who keep the environment, this like an axis, like a basis. And then from that point, you can go to different traditions. You can have talks of representatives of different traditions, but the gravity is there of that core. And it cannot be expressed in any form of document because we cannot have any teaching that is obligatory or main or nothing like that. It's Theosophical Society. But to make things work, we need a group of people who are the core, who share this understanding and help to keep this unspoken kind of arrangement, and that has worked because people of different traditions find their platform, find their environment where they can express themselves and know that they will be heard, not attacked. And if somebody is principally objects, then, as you said, you keep building up. You don't attack a person. You say, I think this, I think that, and there is always the influence of the moderate like core is bigger than any influence that tries to lead it out of the balance for some reason. Yeah, but that's how it worked for us now. Well, that's an experience. I cannot draw any absolute conclusions from that, but that's has been the experience for some years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's helpful to hear from you and Clover. Just to hear from a different theosophical group and how you handle these similar issues. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think for myself, I'm pretty malleable and in all traditions and religions and philosophies and expressions of the divine, I do see the same truth coming through, and it makes sense as a theosophist. And so I don't want you to think, I just want to make clear that my thing is I want to help others arrive at a similar understanding, but but they get stuck in, the one way that, they read a book and it's like, it's Ra. I read this book called Ra. It's a channeled work. And this is the only way that, what you're saying, what Blavatsky said is, that's not true. Ra said it this way. And it's like, they're both saying the same thing, different language. And to help others reconcile that misunderstanding that there's, a certain path, I don't know. It's hard to talk about, but yeah.
I think that's where maybe, I don't know. Seth, you go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I don't really have anything to say. I was just saying maybe that's in those kind of situations, we could try to inspire them to use their higher mind instead. That Virya that looks at all these different traditions and sees them as one. And also want to say that I agree, Justin, that seeing the perspective of Clover and Svat in different countries helps keep our own problems here in the US in perspective, because no matter where you go, there's problems. And
Yeah.
grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I also feel, that what we really need, we need, like, to put it simply, great people, because great people can move the work forward. And we need, I feel, in our line of work, so to say, people who really know Theosophy and understand Theosophy deeply, but also people who understand life deeply and widely, because we need to connect like earth and heavens in one. We have many people who know life, don't know Theosophy. We have some people who know Theosophy but don't know life. We need people who know both. Then they really can communicate and talk to people, to their life experience, and to show how Theosophy can be helpful in life, and so on and so on. So maybe we can try to become such people to advance the work. But other than that, and there are examples and inspirations. I'm thinking about with coaching, for example, Tim Boyd and some other, very prominent Theosophists. Yeah.
Is there anything else on 26 and 27? I think if there isn't, we'll probably go to the last 2 minutes of silence. All right. Here's our closing 2 minutes of silence truths. As always, thank you all very much for being here. It's always really good to hear your thoughts and perspectives. And
Thank you very
hope
much.
to see you again in a couple of weeks.
Have a very good day. Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Good night. Good day.
Good night, good day.
See ya.